I was the same. I was thinking, just, it's kind of slightly kind of hippie ideas of what freedom is and it's living
Mm.
in nature and, all of those kind of things. They're not they're not right or wrong. They're choices that we each make in our life, and some people are drawn to one thing over another. There's absolutely nothing wrong with our preferences, but it's not freedom. Freedom is so much more, so much deeper than that.
Welcome to a Curious Yogi podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, joined by living masters and awakening friends. We're here to illuminate your practice as we explore what it means to walk the yogi's path, unfold peace from within, and live the vision of oneness. I'm so delighted you're here. Now let's get curious. Welcome back to a Curious Yogi podcast. Curious listeners, it's wonderful to be back sharing another great episode, which I recorded a couple months ago. It's taken me a little while to get it out live, but re-listening to it, oh my gosh, it's so good. This episode was recorded live with the Good Company live stream series that I've been offering sort of irregularly to the Patreon members, but it's such a fun format. So we record the episode live and people tune in and write comments in the chat, and it's super nice. And it's with Katharine Pincham from Unchanging Being. She is a longtime meditator and a deeply wise teacher. We talk about so much in this episode. It's totally casual and just bouncing back and forth. We talk about the Gunas, the Bhagavad Gita. We talk about Satsang. We talk about good company. We talk about retraining the mind. Katharine gives me so many good pointers and tidbits and one-liners that it's really good. So if you're someone that struggles with your mind like I do, I think you're going to love this episode. We even break down the meaning of space. So just last night at another satsang session, I was having this conversation about like, what is space? How does the mind grasp space? And I'm not talking about outer space. I'm talking about the space, the energy that is all permeating. So Katharine and I get into it with a lot of joy and delight. And yeah, we just talk about the essence of freedom and the vital role of meditation. And Katharine just illuminates her knowledge through her own experience and her own way of expressing is really, really beautiful. In the episode, we talk about her upcoming Bhagavad Gita course. We talk about her upcoming Bhagavad Gita course, which is now started, but she offers a lot of other really great courses if you're looking to dive into the Upanishads, the Sutras, the Yamas, Niyamas, any of these philosophy type studies that she sort of brings alive and teaches with meditation and just she's amazing. So I would definitely recommend heading over to her site at unchangingbeing.com and sign up for her newsletter. She also sends out a wicked monthly or even weekly newsletter. It's so good. And finally, subscribe to her YouTube channel. She just dropped a new YouTube channel where she gives like bite-sized nuggets of exactly what we talk about in this episode, guided meditations and philosophy talks. So Unchanging Being on YouTube. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode. And I really loved it. I love sharing satsang with my friends. It is what fills my heart up. So I hope you get as much love and joy from this conversation as I did. And we will see you on the other side. All right. Welcome, Katharine. Back.
Thank you, Bobby. It's great to be back.
Yeah, back for the second time on a Curious Yogi podcast. When we were talking earlier, I was reminding us both, I think, that you were on the podcast season 1, episode 2. So,
Early
the,
days. And I feel I feel so proud of you, Bobby. Like what's happened with it. It's really amazing. And
yeah,
yeah. because I visited Kulu for a couple of months in the spring, as you know, and you arrived with your retreat Himalaya group when I was in Satsang. I was so blown away by just what a beautiful group you'd created, kind of how they all arrived already totally lit from everything that you and Simon had been doing with them, and just the whole satsang when they came and each one of them spoke. It really was like one of the highlights of my trip. It was just really touching and really beautiful to see what you've created.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But I think it just speaks to like exactly why, you and I are sitting here in this conversation, how important satsang is, how important good
Totally.
company is, like for, of course, for our spiritual evolvement and
Mm,
understanding and everything,
mm,
but just like in life also, the
totally,
good
totally.
company.
Mm, mm. Yeah. And I like these days, a lot of my satsang is teaching. It's preparing, it's thinking, it's teaching. Um, but also I still also just get together with friends and we read Yoga Shish or something online just to have that kind of because even my dearest friends in Kulu when we meet and yes of course there's a catch up a bit of chit chat but ultimately this is what we want to get to. We want to get to satsang, and so it's the good company is just the best thing in life, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why this podcast has felt so like kind of effortless to watch it grow and everything because it came out of the inspiration of
Yeah,
like that exact thing,
such a
that
perfect inspiration. Yeah, yeah.
how just when you meet those fellow seekers in casual conversation, inevitably the conversation goes towards the truth, the sat,
Mhm.
because that's what we're
Mhm.
all like super
No,
attracted
totally.
to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also just the thing is about being in good company is that the good company your mind starts to be good company for you, really.
Mm.
There's a verse in the Gita which basically says you can be your own best friend or your own worst enemy. And and the good company really ultimately is your mind being good company for you. But of course, when it's not, when it's veering off into into you know constricted and criticism and all of that, when your mind really kind of starts complaining too much, it needs a bit of external help to lift it up. And so that's what these conversations that you're doing, it's what all satsang about really, is about training your own mind to be your own good company.
Wow, I love that. I haven't really thought of it in that perspective, but yeah, it's essential because it seems like and you're a few more years ahead of sadhana of me, but like I think I'm still working on training the
Mhm,
mind because it feels like at least the nature of my mind, its tendency is to sort of veer off. Like it's not its
mm,
tendency to go
mhm,
towards the
mm,
uplifting thought. Like,
mhm,
I'm like, is that just my mind or that's the
mhm.
mechanism of the mind
It's
to
not,
go
I
towards
mean, that
smallness?
what you're describing is extremely common. You could just say it's the nature of mind, basically. Um, but then it's the nature of mind when it's let to just kind of be in charge. That's the problem. You have to really let your mind know that you, the self, the awareness is actually the one in charge. and and not do it in a kind of restrictive disciplinarian way, that because that for me that personally doesn't really work. I remember Swamiji talking about this once and kind of saying that um, treat your mind like a child, which is it's an obvious analogy, but coax it, be kind to it, have sympathy for it. Children, they just don't know that, basically. That's the thing. So sometimes you have to guide them. Sometimes you have to um, put their coat and shoes on when they're going outside, even if they really, really don't want to. Or, things like that. You have to actually say, no, hold on a minute, I know better. And let me help you with this. And let me put you in an environment that's actually going to be really good for your growth. So it's that kind of approach of just being compassionate and kind, but really like saying, no, no, I'm the parent. I'm the one in control here.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels like that is kind of like the description of what we're doing, like in yoga, in
It is,
meditation. It
yeah.
is
It is, yeah. Yeah.
that
Mm,
training. And so there's like the discipline and the
mm,
sort of fierceness or earnestness, the determination and the softness and the
mm,
compassion and the kind of
mm,
like, you know,
mm.
lovingness.
So, because our guru, as you know, Swamiji, he would always say that freedom works on all levels. So he wasn't, as you know, he wasn't one for like forcing your mind to do something or forcing you to do something. He wanted people to be free, completely free. I mean, he wanted them to realize their free nature. And so, because of that, he gave us huge freedom. Like, there were as few rules, for example, as I'm sure any kind of gathering of people of that size as possible. Um, and he kind of inculcated that approach into us. So it's not a matter of even thinking the mind is wrong or bad or shouldn't be doing what it's doing. It's just seeing it for what it is, seeing yourself for what you are, and knowing you're just way more powerful. So
Hmm.
with that knowledge, with that freedom, then then it's fine. Yes, train the mind a bit, especially if it's causing you to feel like you're suffering. But ultimately, it's about what makes you feel most free. And if you go towards that and really free, not free for a moment, what really gives you a sense of residing freedom.
Hmm.
And if you always go towards that, you won't go far wrong, I'd say.
Hmm. I think that you had made like a very subtle but important distinction there, which I often get stuck on, is that the mind can often sort of disguise itself as the higher voice.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
interesting.
know what you if you've had this
Give
experience, or
me
at
give
least
me an
that's my
example. Give me an example.
okay. Like, say, when having to do like make a hard decision or move in, when there's that like sort of inner conflict and the mind is always kind of popping up, at least my mind, with its great ideas and best ways to move forward. But
Mhm.
actually sitting in meditation and allowing that mind to quiet itself is the space where the real answered state
Yes,
comes.
yes.
But
So
sometimes there's this like the mixing.
right, yeah, yeah. So you'll know intuitively if what your mind is telling you to do is aligned with really what your being is knowing to do. You'll know. So just
Mm.
as you are, you're describing it to me. You're saying it's kind of trying to say something, but it's trying to take control. And when it's doing that, it's highly likely not to be quite the voice of the self, because it thinks it exists for a start. It thinks that it's real, that it has, that it's powerful, that it can make you do things. Rather, like you said, you had the perfect answer. Sit back, really come back to yourself, allow a bit of quietness, and see the answer, the solution that comes from that. Because that's going to come from a truer place in you than whatever your mind is saying. Which doesn't mean to say
Yeah.
that we can't use our mind. Sometimes, particularly the intellect part of the mind, um, that is decision making, it's useful. We wouldn't want to give that up, right? And we wouldn't want to give our mind up because it translates all of these images that come through our senses and sounds and feelings. It makes sense of it all for us. And then our intellect kind of decides things. They're amazing tools to use. It's just tools to use for you, the self, to use, not to be led by.
Hmm. It's kind of interesting. Like, as we're talking, I'm kind of thinking, back to what you said about the Bhagavad Gita. It's kind of like this is the eternal problem of the human being is
It
dealing
is,
with
yeah.
one's mind.
It is.
Exactly what
And that's
Yeah.
basically what the Gita, the whole analogy of the Gita is precisely about that. It's about, Arjun on one side of the battlefield. He is the one, I suppose, if just somebody picks up the Gita for the first time, he's probably the one that they will identify with. He wants to do his best. He wants to be righteous and virtuous and go by the society's standards of the day and not upset anybody and be good, right? And then facing him is Duryodhan, which is really just a description of the other aspect of our mind, the kind of Rajasic. So rajas, for anyone listening who isn't familiar, there are three gunas, and Arjun, I would say, represents sattva, which is a kind of purity, spaciousness, clarity. But he's a bit mixed at that moment. He's been influenced by Duryodhan with his rajasic energy. Duryodhan is greedy. He's tried to steal all of the land from Arjun and his brothers and take over their title, their royal title. So he represents that greedy, egotistic, selfish, manipulative side of the mind. And that battlefield is the mind, basically, in the Gita, that it's the mind. And so Krishna, who actually, he's a relative of both of them, and he offers help before the Gita begins in the Mahabharata. Krishna has actually offered help to both of them, but they each got to choose um, what they had. So the choice was between Krishna himself as the charioteer in this battle, or Krishna's whole army with all the men and the elephants and all of that. And Duryodhan, being the materialist and thinking that, material things are more powerful, he goes for the army. And Arjun, being much subtler and more aware, he goes for Krishna with his ultimate guidance. And so Krishna is there as the kind of the observer of all of it, and that's really what you are. So people reading the Gita, they may relate to Arjun at the beginning, but by the end, you come to know that you are Krishna, that there's no separation, that's actually your nature, is that freedom, is that witness consciousness.
Mm. Beautiful. I love the little synopsis of the Gita for those that
Oh,
are listening that are curious of like what scripture to sort of pick up
mhm.
like many even Simon when he went to one yoga class and then he read the Bhagavad Gita. Now he's like, it is because it is so relatable in that sense. But I love that change of the mind, the reframe as we read it, like through all the chapters, is coming to see ourselves
Yeah.
as
And
the
that's the real
self.
victory. That's the victory in this war. There are these, and it can be so off-putting for a lot of people. Like, we get enough war, right, on the news. We don't want to pick up a book and think, oh God, it's another battle. But this battle is one that is really important. It's in each of us, and it's one that by the end of the scripture, by the end of the book, if you've really gone with it and believed in what Krishna is saying, you've won that battle. Ultimately, the battle is won by the end of the Gita. Then Arjun, in the next part of the Mahabharata, just has to physically go and win it. That's a whole nother story.
Mm.
It's such a powerful book.
Mm. And then would you say, and like we talked about this in the in the last conversation we had, which I will put it in the show notes for those that are listening, but we talked about how the Gita has been like your book or scripture of study,
Yeah,
that you've read
yeah.
it many
Mm,
times.
mm.
But do you see that like it is a living scripture each time, even
Totally,
if we open a verse and you read
totally.
it, you come back, even though we
Yes,
forget, we come back.
yes.
So
It's
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 that
been it's
liveliness.
been such a life-changing practice for me. So I think I must have described this then in the podcast I did with you, a couple
But
of
just
years
sum
ago.
it up again, because also you
Yeah.
had probably not read it as many times as you've read it
Not
now,
quite
so I'll
as
be
many
curious.
times, yeah. Although at the moment I'm reading a version by Yogananda. John and I are reading it in the evenings, a version by Yogananda. It's so long, it's delaying the count
You
because
need
it's
the
taking
shorter
us
one.
so long to get through it. But anyway, um, so yes, so what happened was that I was living in Kulu. People familiar with Bobby's podcast will know where that is. It's in the Himalayas, in the ashram there. And I had asked Swamiji what to do about my mind when it was really, again and again, it was focusing on my body and worrying about my health. And I knew from previous experience that this very worry fed into my symptoms. And yet I was in this place where Swamiji was saying every day, you're pure consciousness, you're not the mind. So to only focus on the mental level and try and change, all of my thoughts didn't quite seem to get to the depth of really what needed to change. And so I wrote to Swamiji about it. And he told me, read the Gita out loud 100 times. Um, and it's interesting because before that, I probably would have said my favorite scripture was, the Upanishads or something much more uh, airy, kind of, and
Yeah.
subtle. And you just kind of, it's pure consciousness and that's it, kind of thing. And the Gita is kind of, it's got an energy to it. It's real. It's a real life. It's the real mind. It's human beings and all of their problems, and it deals with that. And I've just found that reading it so many times, what's happened is that now basically any conversation or anything in life, a Gita verse comes in. I can't claim to know them word by word, but I know the sense of it, like, that is completely applicable. It's like there's something for everything, and it just has, seeped in a way that's really been very powerful for me.
Wow. So it is definitely living once you start to embody it, especially I'm sure as a
Totally.
teacher.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because, yeah, so I started teaching it for, I think now, because I'm about to start another course. That'll be the fifth year, and um, and the last year I decided to make a portion of it pre-recorded, and it was so interesting because in that process, it was like going in again and refining my understanding again, and kind of, it's like for me, it's like I get so much out of teaching it. I don't know what anyone else gets, but I really, for me, it's been just a complete blessing that Swamiji gave me that. And I never would have
Mm,
thought the Gita was going to be my favorite scripture, but there we go.
mm.
It's
Yeah, well, like, what do they say that, to the more you teach something, the more you continue learning it? That it's like,
absolutely, it's so much the case. And the more I get the kind of the subtlety of it, and the more I see, it's just a miracle.
do you find that the students that are interested in studying the Gita, is it like a diverse mix, or is it mostly like yoga teachers, or
It's very diverse. It's very diverse. And actually, this year, the people who have signed up so far, uh, there are some yoga teachers, but there's also quite a few people who haven't followed that path. They're just really interested in the philosophy for their own reasons. They're not yoga teachers. They live other ordinary lives, but they've just become really interested in it. And yeah, so it's a real mix. Because it's certainly not just for yoga teachers.
No.
It's for anybody, anybody who really feels like they could do with some, like, it's the nearest thing I would say you can have to having a guru if you don't have somebody in form that you, it's like the guru is in that scripture. The guru comes
Mm,
through that scripture. It's like living in
mm,
it, I'd say.
mm. Yeah, so for anybody that's seeking it, it's kind of like goes back again to that answered state, like
Yeah.
having that living text that just it feels so miraculous that it is so old and yet so relevant to the condition of the
I
human
know, I know,
mind.
I know, totally. And the same with Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It's like these texts that are so old is because the human mind basically doesn't seem to have changed much. If we look at those texts and what they're really about. And obviously the external concerns are different. The social kind of setup and the social rules and norms are different. So the external side is different, but the internal side of our mind is exactly the same. And those the sages who wrote those scriptures, they saw the mind so clearly, in all of its kind of ups and downs and thises and that's, and they just saw its nature and knew what was needed to help you get free, um, free of the mind. I think sometimes, when we think of freedom, people can think freedom can mean do whatever you want. Like, just have freedom on the level of life. And of course, I said before, freedom on all levels works. But freedom on the mental level is freedom from the mind, not freedom of the mind. So
Mm,
it's allowing the mind to be as it is, because we can make efforts to change it, and then sometimes it just is as it is. That's it. That's what in this time round, that's the kind of mind you've been given. And so it's you, the self, who's who's coming through, who's been given that particular vehicle to work with, and still to know you're free, despite
mm,
everything that your mind does. It's like it doesn't
mm,
mean that your mind has to become a perfect mind, that it has to think perfect thoughts, that it always has to be positive and always has to be this or that. It's not that. It's like it's seeing that you are continuously free all the time, regardless what the mind is doing, regardless if the mind is having a tantrum or whether it's peaceful. You're free. You're just the witness of that. You're the one watching that, and
mm.
staying with that, witness power, witness consciousness is really what freedom from the mind means.
Yeah. I think that is like when I think of my own journey as one who always desired freedom, but I didn't have that subtle understanding of true freedom.
Hmm.
So for so many years, I sought sort of frantically relative freedom, freedom from the
Yeah, I
mind.
think I did
You
for
know,
for a few years. I did the same. Around my kind of college, university years, that I was the same. I was thinking, just I was kind of slightly kind of hippie ideas of what freedom is, and it's living in
mm,
nature, and all of those kind of things. They're not right or wrong. They're choices that we each make in our life, and some people are drawn to one thing over another. There's absolutely nothing wrong with our preferences, but it's not freedom. Freedom is so
mm.
much more, so much deeper than that.
Yeah, but it is kind like the whole world is reflecting something different, some other
Yeah,
kind of truth
no,
about
it's so
freedom.
true. It's so true. It's so true. And I think, the voices, the number of voices that people are kind of that are coming in to people through social media, through their phones these days, I think I just feel so grateful I have this as a kind of stationary, unchanging point with which to view that. And I would think that it would be really helpful to turn a lot of those voices off, to be honest with you, because
Mm,
they do say the opposite. Because and the mind is that's the nature of the mind, that it is influenced by things around it. That's because it's gunic, because it's made of the three gunas, and the gunas have that their quality is to be influenced by what's kind of in their vicinity. And so you can't expect to constantly put the mind in a situation which is disturbing, agitating, making it feel all sorts of negative emotions, and then for it not to be affected by those things. It will be affected. So then
mm,
it's even more important, the good company, going back to that. It's good company. That's the
yeah.
crucial thing.
Yeah, and like goes back to what you were saying earlier about like training the mind, like just to expect the mind. Even yesterday, I had a friend, he was feeling unwell, and he said, like, I know I just have to like snap out of it. I just have to bring my positive mindset. It's like,
Mm.
it's so hard to get a positive mindset
N
when your
When you're not
mind is
feeling well.
spiraling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like how to gently, subtly, like keep
Yeah.
putting our attention, like you said, on that center point,
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
anchor.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that is really understanding the gunas as well, because depending on kind of what our mind is like if your mind is really, sluggish and depressed and seeing the negative in everything, then actually sometimes then you can't from and that's tamas. So for anyone not aware of the gunas, there are three gunas. As I said before, there's sattva, calm and clear and peaceful. There's rajas, agitated and ego driven, and tamas, which is just a kind of blanket of darkness, of ignorance of anything, and a kind of depressed kind of energy. So if you're in tamas, you actually can't go straight to sattva. You actually need then a bit of rajas to to lift you out. It's like if you have a really dirty, messy room, then you can't just immediately think, oh, I want my room to be like peaceful and tidy and clear. You actually have to get up and you have to clear it up. You have to put the things
Mm,
away and get the vacuum out and everything. That's so you use a bit of rajasic energy then to do that clearing up process. So that amount of rajas is really helpful. So they each have their uses, the gunas. Tamas is great when we need to go to sleep. It's exactly what we need. So, but but then having used that rajas, then we can appreciate. My room is so beautiful now. It's open and fresh and tidy, and the sattva just is there, ready, waiting to be noticed when it's like that. Um, so we so depending on kind of what's going on, sometimes you need to calm down. Sometimes you do need a bit of oomph to get out of it.
hmm. So I remember hearing one teacher like talking about the guna as a yoga teacher, and that like how we do have them all, and like maybe you can shed some light on this, because I feel like rajas and tamas, they get like the bad rap, but
Yeah,
like obviously sattvic is the goal, especially for a
yeah,
yogi, a seeker. We want that
mm,
clarity. Actually, all human beings, we all want that
mhm,
state of
mm,
harmony. But it's
mm.
like we do need all to function in the mind, because that's the quality of the mind, right?
I mean, the body and mind are made of all three, so they will be present. You can't expect to only ever live in some rarefied atmosphere of sattva. To a small degree, the others, or ideally to a small degree, the others will be present in as much as just allowing you to do the necessary physical things. Um, and there is no doubt that a sattvic atmosphere is more helpful for allowing us to do sadhana. Like it clearly is. Like when you're peaceful, then when you read something, when you contemplate something, there's the attention is available, as much as
Mm,
anything, to actually hear it, to actually allow it to go in, to allow it to be transformed, to rather allow it to transform you. So sattva is really helpful. However, it's not the ultimate freedom, because, again, in the Gita, Krishna says to Arjun, you have to go beyond the three gunas, which means you are beyond the three gunas. What your actual reality is the witness of all of these. We're the witness of the peace, of the disturbance, of the depression. We know all of those things. When they're described to us, then then part of us thinks, yeah, I've experienced that. I've experienced that. I know
Mm.
that. That's because that witness has been there throughout, just simply being, and all of these different kind of uh, moods of the gunas have risen and fallen, but that free witness has got nothing to do with them. So that's the ultimate freedom. But there isn't that. It's very helpful to create, especially as you said, in our lives where there's so much kind of noise coming into us, that it's really helpful to create the atmosphere where we can go towards that which is um, higher knowledge.
Hmm. And Sarah just wrote in the chat, nice to have Sarah here. She's a Patreon member from Italy. She said the way out is to overcome the gunas. She remembered that, but she wasn't sure if it was in the Gita or the
It's the
sutras.
Gita, yeah, yeah. The Sanskrit
Yeah.
says Trigunya Vishayaveda. Um,
Be- Mm.
yeah,
Because
so
it's like
mm,
it does seem though, when one on the surface level thinks about the goal or the purpose of meditation
mm,
and yoga is to find that peace. But
mm,
such a kind of revolutionary expanded vision to say actually we get even beyond the mind's idea or experience, a sensory experience of
yes,
harmony, which is like
yes,
so temporal.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah, totally. And we get beyond it, and we see that actually the thing is that the qualities that are experienced when sattva is present, of peacefulness, of spaciousness, of kind of blissfulness, really they're qualities of the self that have not been blocked because sattva is so spacious that it doesn't distort very much or change the qualities of the self. So when you experience that peace, it's because it's your nature. When you experience happiness in that kind of way, it's because it's your nature. Your real nature is peaceful, it is blissful, it is contented. It is, santosha. If you think of the yama and niyama, that is the nature of your being. And when we have, um, when the conditions are right, let's say, then we get to experience that. But having seen that for yourself and having seen, my nature actually is that,
Hmm.
then we don't have to think, so I have to maintain that feeling all the time of the day and never let any other guna come in. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's that our nature is spacious. Things come and go in space. It doesn't disturb it. Things, clouds come and go, weather comes and goes. There's a storm, there's the sun, there's a plane flying through. Like that, nothing disturbs it. That's its nature. That's your nature.
Mm. I love the way of thinking about sattva in that way, that it is still a guna within the
Mm,
qualities, but it is a
hmm.
more subtle space. Whereas
Yeah,
when one is in that tamasic space, it is a heavy covering, or the
totally.
rajas is so chaotic you can't see
Yeah,
through that
yeah.
veil. So it's a kind of
Yeah,
interesting visualization of
yeah,
thinking about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is also about Rajas and Tamas is they play a big role in us not recognizing the self. Because tamas, basically, the blanket of tamas. If you think about what happens in sleep, in deep sleep, um, we don't know anything. We don't know anything about the world. It's just a blanket, and so that kind of blanketing of ignorance is tamas. And in the waking state, it doesn't blanket the world, but it blankets the self. So it blankets
Hmm.
your knowledge of actually the pure being. And then with that being blanketed, then rajas totally distracts us by everything that comes through our senses. It's like, oh, this is more interesting than the self. This is, I can see it, I can feel it, I can touch it. It's diverting. And it keeps us occupied with our to-do lists and with I must do this, and if I don't do that, something really bad is going to happen, and I can't prioritize meditation because that's the voice of, of Rajas. It pulls us out constantly. So totally allowing those two to really calm down is very helpful in sadhana, for sure.
Hmm. And it is like such a fundamental way of understanding the mind. Like even how Sarah was like, was it in the Gita or the sutras? Because the gunas are talked about in both,
Yes, totally. It's
which is
it's
so
it's
interesting
fundamental.
as well.
That's another thing actually that I, as anyone who listened to the first of my first interview with Bobby and the podcast, will have heard, I went to a school. So I was introduced to the idea of the gunas very young. It was like, oh yeah, 3 gunas, boring. And so when I first started reading the Gita, Jonty and I would get to the chapters where there's more on the gunas. I'd be, oh, okay, I better get through this bit. But actually, actually, the more I read it, the more I realized this is actually really important, and this is actually a key to my issues with health and with my mind going in a certain way. And it's so it really it kind of it came to life for me, really, the whole gunas. And I see the world through that kind of through those glasses of the gunas, I guess, much
Hmm.
more than I used to.
Mm. It's almost like so simplistic that like the mind wants to complicate thing and the world wants to
Mm,
complicate thing, and now we have psychology and like all these things to
mhm,
understand the mind. But like it's so kind of simple way of
mhm, mhm,
understanding and like meeting ourselves, which are a part of nature, those three
mhm,
qualities, with more kind of
mm,
compassion and simplistic ease in a sense.
mhm. And it totally explains also why people can want lots of different things seemingly at the same time. That part of you thinks I should be successful and creative, and I should go and I should make a lot of money, and then another part kind of says, oh god, this world is dreadful, let me stay in bed, you know and then the other part is like I should be a spiritual master, and
Uh-huh.
so I mean I'm obviously exaggerating,
No,
but
you're not. That's kind of describes me in a single day.
so that's the gunas. Those are the voices of the gunas, right? So if you recognize them, it's like, oh yeah, hi Rajas, hi Thomas, how are you today? Fine, get on with your thing, but I'm nothing to do with you. You just keep going, but I'm okay, thanks. I don't have to really believe what you're saying because I know that voice is wanting, because each guna kind of wants to thrive and grow and feed on anything that will keep it alive. And so being aware of that, you can like just detach a bit. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna feed you today. I'm gonna let you wither away and get weaker today.
But I guess that's why like the daily meditation practice is so essential,
Totally,
because
totally.
it's like exactly like the name of your website. It's the
Mhm.
unchanging being, which is
Mm,
always
mm,
there to remind us to bring our attention back to, like you said, the sky space or that
yeah.
expanded vision where we
No,
see
and
the
I don't
play.
think honestly none of these scriptures make sense without it actually.
Mm.
And it's a difficult because as a teacher you can't do the meditation for anyone. That's the part they absolutely have to sit and do for themselves. And having said that, the satsang itself will change consciousness. It will open up a bit your state of consciousness, and it will allow you um, to understand more. But the meditation is the regularity of the meditation as well is where you really come again and again, as you said, to what's unchanging. What's unchanging? Every day is different. You're in a different mood. Different things are happening. You're probably in a different part of the world, knowing you, Bobby. But but the being is always the same, always present, always the basis, the ground, the foundation of everything.
Mm. And that is something that I feel is sort of once we peel back that identification with the gunas, it is something that makes kind of sense to everybody. That sense of the unchanging I am. It
Yes,
is available if one points the attention in that
yes,
direction.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's totally available. It's 100% available. It's always, always there. And it's just waiting to be for you to notice it finally. Like,
Mm.
what then it's like, "What took you so long? I was
Well, that's
here."
good. Well, isn't that kind of what Krishna says to Arjuna in the
Yeah.
chapter? I think, what is it, chapter 6 that's on meditation?
Yeah, 6 is meditation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where he's like, "Hello, I've been here. The solution to all your
Yeah,
problems."
yeah. No, just sit on a kusha grass mat, I think it is, and it's okay. We don't need kusha grass mats now, but, or maybe it was actually, leopard skin or something. Yeah, anyway, we've got better seating these days, but
Mhm.
but, it's central to all of this practice. It's central to sadhana, for sure.
Hmm. And what is the instruction that Krishna gives to Arjun for the meditation practice? Like, apart from the practical
Mm.
things like the
They're
grass or
the
the leopard
practical
skin?
things. One instruction he gives that, um, is really, I think, helpful is, he says something like, "Sit with no expectations." And that as an attitude to sit with is a really helpful attitude. It's like it's in a way, so in the Gita there are verses on action, karma yoga, and the principle of that is you act, but you surrender the results. You don't hold on to any sense that the results should be this way or that they should belong to me. And in a way, meditation, when he says sit without kind of expecting anything, it's the same. You just put yourself on your mat or, where your seat, your chair, your bed, whatever, wherever you're meditating, but leave aside any thought that this should be a certain kind of meditation. Leave aside any judgment about it, about what a good meditation will be like, what a bad meditation will be like, and close your eyes and be aware that the being that is present as your existence there's no distance to this being. It is what you are. It is your very sense of being alive, existing. That is what you are, and that's seen. So what you see when you close your eyes is that. Everything is that. There is only that. Everything that we think we experience is actually being known through that and is that. Um, But in that moment of meditation, we can just close our eyes and and let that be known, let that be recognized.
Hmm.
Another thing he says, and this is it's quite a famous verse, this one, um, is the mind should be like a flame in a windless space. And I think that particular line people can find quite intimidating. And
Hmm.
sometimes it can put people off meditating because they think, well, my mind's not like a flame in a windless space. So
Yeah,
I'm
like how many
obviously not
people
doing
say,
it right. Yeah.
"My
And
mind won't
so,
quiet. I can't
yeah,
meditate."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Whereas for a start, meditation is a practice. Like when you first start learning the piano or something, you're not going to be playing Beethoven. So it's like, well, I can't play Beethoven, so what's the point of me, So that's one, that's kind of one angle. But it's not even that really. And Swamiji's translation of this and kind of his commentary on this is so important, I think, because he explains that it's actually the nature of of the self itself that is unchanging as in a windless space. That's you. The witness of the mind is what doesn't change. and stay with
Mm.
that, to stay with that unchanging nature of your own reality. Forget what the mind is doing or not doing. Stay with that which doesn't change.
Mm. Yeah, because then it's like the vrittis or the waves of the mind or the flicker of the flame happens or doesn't happen in that unchanging
Exactly,
space.
exactly. So if you think of the space of a room, the the kind of volumetric space, I suppose you would say, that just doesn't change, whether a candle light in that room is still or whether it sometimes flickers, what happens to the space of that room? Nothing. It's completely unchanged. It isn't touched because it's far subtler than this little flame. So it's the same with the self. What happens on the level of the mind is irrelevant. The self is far subtler, far vaster, far more encompassing than the little mind that with its kind of little thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's also interesting when, like, just thinking of me as someone that's studying or reading or learning, when I hear space, like when the self is likened to space, it's like that's the space that we're sort of imagining with the mind, is that space which is everywhere, is it in
Mhm.
everything. Because it's kind of, I think, too, for some people, when they think like the space and they're like, am I
Right.
going
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, like
So
what is the
yes.
space or
Okay.
the
Okay.
self?
Good. 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 Very good question. So
Mm.
the space is you. You in your purest, subtlest, most being. And people say, in fact, I've just made a little YouTube video and I was talking about this. People often have this sense of, I'm sure there's something more than just the body and the mind. I think many people have that sense, even if they're not going to say they're spiritual or they're religious, but they just have the sense of there is something more than just the body and the mind, but I'm not quite sure what it is. The knowingness that knows that is the self, is the space, because its nature is knowingness. It's witnessing everything that's ever been witnessed. It's the consciousness that we experience as if it's life that begins and ends, but it isn't something that begins and ends. It's the unending, the immortal, the eternal consciousness which witnesses all beginnings and all ends. And that's your nature. It is not the changing nature of the changing states of consciousness and the birth and the death. I think that people know it. I think that people instinctively know it, but when the mind tries to define it, when the mind tries to kind of put it in a box and say, now this is the space, it's this, as soon as you try and do that, you lose it. Because
Mm.
it's the space that's aware of the mind. The mind can't be aware of the space. The space is knowing and witnessing everything the mind is doing. The mind can't kind of go backwards, as it were. So the
Mhm.
space can only be known through direct experience of being, of existing, of yeah, being. Um, it can't be known by the mind thinking about it. But
Mm,
when we
wow.
say it's everything because everything that we experience ourselves as a human being is a form, a kind of manifestation of that. And in the same way, everything we see and experience out in creation is a form and a manifestation of that. And that is its ultimate nature. So we know, yes, we've got this body and mind, and that's what people seem to be kind of thinking of ourselves as, but actually there's something far subtler, and that sense is true. And it's the same in everything. There's something far subtler present in a tree than just the bark and the branches and the leaves. There's a pure intelligence, there's a pure being in that, which is you, which is the same. And it's the same with everything in creation.
Hmm. And isn't it that, like, science even now is starting to catch
It
up with
totally
this,
is.
that
It totally is. Yeah. Yeah. So quantum, I can't claim to understand it, but quantum physics is, I think, getting there. And they're seeing in quantum physics, like all the math sums are all pointing to something being kind of an underlying unifying um, presence, and yet those equations can't quite get there. They point to it. They all point to it. And it's exactly the same as our own experience with our mind. I can point to it. If you're describing it to someone else, you can point to it. But that what it is just present. So it, the pointing isn't the thing.
Like Swamiji said, like I'm pointing, but you don't stop at my finger.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
go in the direction he is pointing
Yeah.
for your own
Yeah.
self, which is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
experience in
Yeah.
meditation. It's
Yeah.
a kind of wild paradox that makes the mind like go like fritz, like get little fritzy wires. But I think that's also like thinking in these different ways is what also keeps sadhana interesting and like fresh at all
Mm,
times, and
mm,
satsang
mm,
fresh. And there's
mm,
always something to point us in that direction, whether it's the
mm.
Gita or a satsangi or the guru himself.
Totally.
But it's
Totally.
like every angle you can come at it, it's and yet it's always there right with you. It's
I
so
know. I know. But that's the
wonderful.
great thing, because actually you never have to go and search for it, really. You only have to just stop. Just stop. Like, stop what you're doing for a moment and recognize, the self is present.
Mm, that's beautiful. Well, I think this is a great point to put a
Of
nice little bow on our
Yeah,
talk. So
yeah.
I just want to finish with a few last quick questions.
Mhm,
Um, the first one is, at this point in your sadhana, which I know you've been doing
mhm.
sadhana many years, what are you still curious about, if
What am I
anything?
still curious about? I'm curious just to witness how action flows from the self and yet doesn't. Like, and yet, not that it doesn't, but the things that I do in my day, the things that my teaching, or I'm looking after my elderly father. Um, I'm preparing. That those things aren't happening. Like,
Hmm.
that there's a happening without it happening. That there's a movement with complete stillness. That the kind of the coexistence of what normally we would think of as opposites coexist so comfortably together. Like, there's sound, but there's just always silence present as well. And so it's just the noticing of that, noticing how actually in the nature of the self, all opposites are absorbed and resolved in the self. And yet we can see them and play with them and do things and act and create things, but nothing is happening. Nothing is happening.
Mm. Wow, that's a beautiful expression. Thank you. And a great current Mahavakya that you're been churning on or getting inspired by. Great saying.
Good question. What actually is coming to mind is something by Muji, um, that I had kind of saved in one, and let me see if I can remember the exact quote. It's something like, "Your mind doesn't have any power. You have power. But when you believe in your mind, you're giving your power to the mind."
Beautiful. That's totally kind of sums up
Yeah,
also what we've been
yeah,
talking about
yeah,
as well, that the
yeah,
power lies in the self
yeah,
and then the mind happens in the self.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. And then the final question is
Hmm.
just summing up this conversation in one sentence, which we kind of just did.
Yeah, I think I just did it.
Muji did it, and you did it.
Yeah. It's just
Amazing.
it's just that summing up is self is at the beginning, self is all the way through. You come to self at the end. There's no escape.
Nice. It's so delightful. You know, it
It
is
is.
such a
It is.
it is it's a delightful place to bring oneself. Great. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. You're such a wizard at all things sadhana. So thank you so much for just sharing with your total knowledge, and also it's just fun to hang out with you.
It's
So
very fun
that
to
was
hang out with you. A great way
that
to
was great.
start it. It's a great way to start a Tuesday. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Bobby.
that's pretty great. And
Yeah.
Sarah says thank you in the chat. So
Hi,
great. And just
Sarah.
for
Bye,
those,
Sarah.
yes, for those that are listening, just a reminder to uh take advantage of being participant in these kind of conversations by going over to the Patreon page. So yeah, thanks so much, Catherine. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/a curious yogi podcast. And please leave a review. It really helps the show reach more people. Let's stay curious, connected, and keep walking the path together. In total delight, this is Bobby signing off until next time.